that we have great respect for the Palestinian resistance. What they call the establishment, the ruling establishment in Washington and on Wall Street. They say we want to replace them.
As a party, how do you see the Palestinian resistance movements, including Hamas? Do you think that the international community should engage with them? And do you relate the Palestinian struggle in a way to the U.S. social justice movements?
I think that we have great respect for the Palestinian resistance. We think that the constellation of forces in Palestine is the decision of the Palestinian people and nobody else, that they choose their leadership. Nobody else, it's nobody else's business, in our opinion. And we support their right to self-determination as they see fit. Full stop. Unconditional. That's their right. And yes, I think that there are that the apartheid conditions, both in Israel and in Palestine, in Gaza, and the West Bank, struck a deep chord among the people of the United States, both Arab and non-Arab, and the initial protest against the war and the genocide after October 7th emerged out of communities of color, came from the African American clergy. Well, in the first place, it came from the Palestinian and other Arab youth who were, protesting, and African American youth joined in, and Latino youth, and Asian youth, white youth, and so on and so forth. And then it spread, and one of the early indications of that support for Palestine came out of the African American ministry, when they took out the big ad in the New York Times, if you remember, protesting Biden's policy. So there is, just as there was a deep connection between the civil rights movement and the movement against apartheid in South Africa, so too there's a deep connection and solidarity and love between the social movements in the United States and Palestine, and I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Well, talking about framing Israel as an apartheid state, I remember when I asked Mr. Ronnie Casseroles, who is one of the symbols of the ANC and the South African struggle against the apartheid, he refused to frame Israel as an apartheid state. He said they have gone way beyond that, since we were talking about the apartheid Israel.
He wouldn't know.
Do you still believe that the two-state solution is a viable solution, or do you rather believe that one state from the sea to the river is the solution? I mean, one state for all its citizens, be it Jews, Arabs, both Christians and Muslims?
We support, in the first place, our point of departure is that issue is the decision of the Palestinian people.
Okay.
We support the positions of our sister parties in the region. In Palestine, the Palestinian People's Party, and in Israel, Hadash and the Israeli Communist Party. And their position remains in favor of a two-state solution. They feel that in these circumstances, right now, the creation of a single state would be an apartheid state in these circumstances. What will eventually...
Practically, the Israeli government has made it impossible for a two-state solution.
That's what they're saying.
They have bitten most of the West Bank, and you can see that Gaza has been placed under embargo and
I understand.
siege. How does the party view the influence of the lobbying groups like IPAC on the U.S. politics, both domestic and foreign?
You know, the AIPAC and not only them, but the Christian Zionists and the big business, their undue influence on U.S. politics. They control, taken as a whole, U.S. politics. I'm most concerned about, when you talk about lobbies, those who are never mentioned. The lobbies of white, Anglo-Saxon, Protestant, big businesses that dominate the U.S. government, that dominate big sections of the world economy, you know, dominate both Democratic and Republican administrations. And because of that domination, they have a common policy on the Middle East and on the Israel, big oil, the military industrial corporations, you know, common policy on Israel, common policy on China. The difference between the Republican Democratic Party, China, Israel is almost negligible, you know. And so again, you know, the task for us is how do we break up the impact of these huge transnational corporations and banks on the U.S. government. That's to redirect U.S. foreign policy in a more peaceful, humane direction, you know. And I think that's an, you know, it may seem an impossible task.
Mission impossible.
But it's an urgent. But the defeat of apartheid seemed impossible. You know, 4 or 5 years before they were able to render the country ungovernable, you know, it seemed like it couldn't happen. But next thing you know, Nelson and Winnie were, you know, walking out of Robben Island, and then we saw them marching down Fifth Avenue here in the United States. So things can happen very rapidly.
Yeah.
And changes can occur in ways that are unpredictable. And I think that we're approaching, I don't want to make predictions, we've made too many that didn't come true, but I think that we're approaching a situation in our country where big changes are afoot.
Given the fact that before Israel's most recent war against Gaza and Lebanon, the annual U.S. military aid to Israel was $3.8 billion. And since the last war started, has reached or actually exceeded $12 billion. How does the U.S. military aid to Israel impact domestic U.S. spending priorities?
It's a good question, my friend, and I really don't know the answer, except that I think that that money would be much better directed at assisting the people of Gaza and the West Bank and the people who are suffering from the fires in the western part of the United States and California and so on and so forth. I mean, you know, the Defense Department's budgets are in the hundreds of billions of dollars, you know, and so while aid to Israel is a substantial part of it, you know, they have money to burn, and that military budget is distorting the U.S. economy, and you know, they never talk about the real reasons that contribute to inflation. My guess is that military spending is near the top of the list, you know. And so one of the things that, in addition to breaking up the big corporations, that we have to do is to cut the military budget. And that issue is something that not only we're talking about, but other sections of the population, including in the Democratic Party, are in favor of. And until we do that and get a hold to it, you know, we're going to continue to have this right-wing fascist-like drift in U.S. politics that the MAGA movement represents.
Let me just intervene here.
Sure.
Because this is the second time you relate right-wing to fascism. In your view, I mean, are they the same thing? Or because I can see many right-wing parties which are not specifically fascist.
No,
parties.
they're not the same.
Okay.
They're not the same. I think one is a precursor to the other. I think that one creates the soil upon which the other grows, you know?
But they're not necessarily the same.
No, they're not the same.
Yeah.
They're not the same. We say fascism is the open terroristic dictatorship. It's an open terroristic dictatorship. We don't have that in the United States, you know? What we have with the Trump and MAGA are elements of that coalition who, if necessary, would favor imposing a regime like that. But what you do have is, with the tech right coming out of Silicon Valley, you know, and the MAGA right, who publicly support, and they say this openly, that they want to replace the establishment, what they call the establishment, the ruling establishment in Washington and on Wall Street. They say we want to replace them. And in fact, Trump said it in his inaugural
And
speech.
what does that mean for the American people?
That means the end of abortion rights for women. It means the suppression of voting rights. It means clamping down on unions. It means ongoing violence by police forces against African American and Latino young men and women. It means tramping down on the rights of people who are of different sexual orientations, you know. And it means imposing whatever force is necessary in order for them to achieve that. Trump organized a mob to take over the Capitol on January the 6th in order to keep him in power. Those people were tried. Many were sent to jail. And he just, gave them a pardon. So it means lawlessness. It's a blank check for them to do whatever the hell they want to do. And then the Supreme Court of the United States, which has a right-wing majority, said Trump has immunity to do whatever he wants to do. And so you take those two things together, a president who has an authoritarian impulse, a Supreme Court which has given him a green light and said you can do whatever you want, and a organized mob backed by right-wing militias, and I think you have a very dangerous situation. So it means that we're in a very dangerous situation. That's what it means.
People of Greenland, one way or the other, we're going to get it.
Pay attention to what Trump says. Pay attention to what he does. Reassertion of the Monroe Doctrine, that the United States, that the Americas are our sphere of influence.